Hello and welcome to this AQA webinar, Power and Conflict Poetry Anthology. We are looking at Tissue by Imtiaz Dharker, and we're hoping to understand the poetic form and structure and how that links with ideas and issues. We're looking at imagery and language and also understanding some of the context of the poem. Now, this poem is a very ambiguous poem, and it's a very powerful poem because it really draws our attention to the powerful structures in society. So the poet, is contrasting the structures of law, religion, economy, and education with the power of the human spirit. Each of the stanzas, the 8 stanzas, apart from the very last line, is in quatrains. They are 4-line stanzas. They're showing the rigidity of society, these clear boundaries and lines that we all have to adhere to. However, within those boundaries, there is fluidity and movement, and engagement is used to show that human life can be fragile, it can be unpredictable, but there also is the ability of change. And the quotation, "paper that lets the light shine through," shows that engagement and this possibility of something different and new. Caesura is also used, particularly in stanza 5, where she says maps to. You can see that abrupt stop. It shows that lack of freedom and how boundaries, geographical boundaries, are put on people. And yet the last line, that 1-line stanza, "turned into your skin," really expresses that idea of freedom and individuality, that despite all the structures of society, individuals can change and transform with their ideas. Now, some of the messages are quite interesting. The poet really uses this extended metaphor of paper, tissue, if you like, paper, that society can change over time. Papers are smoothed and stroked and turned transparent with attention. That means they're not rigid, they're not enforced necessarily if they are capable of being changed. She also really looks at the dominance of religion and government and money and family, but she also says that individuals can shape and break history. But let the daylight break through capitals and monoliths, through the shapes that pride can make, and find a way to trace a grand design. Individuals can have an impact. And these powerful ideas, the light can shine through. And as a society, we can jointly own and share our world with living tissue to raise a structure never meant to last. So this idea of living tissue is about humans, humanity, individuals that raise a structure never meant to last. It's not for each of us to impose our religion and our ideology, but for us collectively as a society, as a world, to define and redefine who we are. So I can see that some students struggle with this poem because there are some huge wide-ranging ideas. But when we look a little bit more at the structure, when we look a little bit more at the language and imagery, hopefully that will help you understand key ideas. So the use of repetition is key. Paper smoothed and stroked, it's used in stanza 4, it's used in stanza 8. And it's this idea that past systems of society can be replaced. And light imagery is used, paper that lets light through, the sunlight, luminous, daylight. All this light imagery permeates to show that sense of freedom and hope for the future through individuals. Now, this simile, "it might fly our lives like paper kites," is ambiguous, like much of the language. Does it show that we're restricted, that paper kites tug and pull us when we think about money? Or does it show that, like paper kites, we can be released from some of these worries and responsibilities? Religious references are there. The Quran is mentioned. And really, she's saying that humanity doesn't have to be defined just by labels of religion. And the last bit, this anatomical reference of the skin, "turned into your skin," shows that individual power shapes society. Now, Imtiaz Dharker was born in Pakistan, but she moved to Glasgow and she grew up there. She's a poet and a filmmaker, and she feels that her two heritages, Pakistani and Scottish, can work together harmoniously. And coming from a multicultural background, she says that we have to build bridges. So the real world of war and terror is hell-bent on destruction, whereas as humanity, we can forge a way to find peace and tolerance and acceptance. And those key ideas and issues work right through the poem. I hope this webinar has helped you to gain some more confidence on this tricky poem. Thank you for joining me, and goodbye.